Hi class, this is Mrs. Leach. Our lesson today is on angle measures. Our learning targets for today's lesson are: I can estimate angle measures using benchmarks. I can measure angles with a protractor. And lastly, I can identify acute, obtuse, and right angles. Here's some examples below of some different size angles. All right, here's an example of an angle, and we have some vocabulary on this page to review the different parts of an angle. First of all, an angle is the amount of turning or the amount of opening between two rays. They are made of two different rays with the same endpoint. So from E to D is a ray. Actually, the whole line, this whole segment is a ray. And then E to F and moving on from there is also a ray. So a ray is part of a line with one endpoint. Then a vertex is the endpoint or the corner. So right here is the vertex. E is labeled our vertex. An angle is named by its vertex point or with three letters. So this angle could be called, and we use this symbol, it could be called angle E for its vertex, or it could be angle DEF. Either one of those is correct. The degree of an angle measures the opening between the two sides of the angle, and we use a protractor to find the degrees. All right, here are some examples of acute, right, and obtuse angles. An acute angle is an angle that measures less than 90 degrees. A right angle measures exactly 90 degrees, and obtuse angles they measure more than 90 degrees. All right, here is a protractor. We've used these in the past. This angle on the board right now measures 75 degrees. I want you to look at the angle and look at the protractor and think about, how do you know it doesn't measure 105 or 115 degrees? Because as you can see right out here, it does show that it's between 100 and 110 here. And the reason that we know that it is 75 in here, in the inside, the reason we know that is because this angle, if I look, the first thing I do when I look at an angle before even using my protractor is decide, is it more than 90 degrees or less than 90 degrees, excuse me. And this tells me which set of numbers, the inside or the outside, I'm going to use on my protractor. So this angle I can tell is less than 90 degrees. So I'm not going to be using out here, I'm going to be using the inner numbers. So it's right in the middle between 70 and 80, so it's 75 degrees. All right, here's another angle, but it's going the opposite way. It's still the bottom of the angle, the one ray, is still lined up with my 180 degrees and my zero line, but it's kind of facing the opposite direction. So I want you to look at this angle and this protractor and tell what is the measure of this angle. When you're all done with the video, you might want to just write it down on a sticky note or on a piece of paper right now. You could write number 1 and, you know, blank degrees. We show degrees with a little, well, actually, I guess you wouldn't be able to type that, but we do show it with a little O like that, or you would just write the word degrees. And then when you're all done with the video, you're going to comment on the blog the answer to number 1, blank degrees. Okay? Here's another angle. So again, take a look, is it more than 90 degrees or less than 90 degrees before you decide which set of numbers, the inner or the outer, that you're going to use. Decide what's the measure of this angle and comment on the blog at the end when you're all done. If you write it on a piece of paper right now, you won't forget. So blank degrees. We're going to be talking about, this unit is on geometry, so we're going to be talking about a lot of different shapes. And one of those shapes we're talking about in this lesson is triangles. Triangles have 3 angles. Tri stands for 3. So there are 3 different types of angles, or 3 different types of triangles based on the angles that are in them. So this triangle is an acute triangle because all of the angles, this one, and this one, are all acute angles. So that means it's an acute triangle. This triangle is a right triangle because it has 1 right angle in it. And then the last one at the bottom is an obtuse triangle. Obtuse triangles have an obtuse angle somewhere in them. So I can see that obtuse angle right here. So that makes it an obtuse triangle. And just as a review for using your protractor, it's kind of hard to do on a smartboard, but this is kind of a cool tool. So you always, when you're using a protractor, you always want to line up. You can see the green line that goes along the bottom right here. That's the bottom of my angle, okay? And then, oops, then I can use, oops, okay, why is this not working? Well, maybe it's not going to let me do it this time. Oh, here it goes. Okay, sorry about that. So we always want to line up our bottom line with the 0 or 180 mark. And then the middle, the vertex, the corner of our angle is always going to be in the middle where that green triangle in the middle is. We want to line that up with the hole in our protractors. So I can kind of just move this around with my smartboard, and I can make an angle that is, let's say, 60 degrees. And how do I know that that's 60 and not 120? Because if I look at it, it's less than 90 degrees. So it can't be the 120 out here. It has to be the 60. So that can work. If you have an angle that you need to measure, you can do that. Or if you're drawing an angle, so say I tell you to draw an angle that is 70 degrees. You're going to first draw your bottom line that's in blue right now. Line it up with your 0 and your 180 line. And then you're going to find that 70 degree mark and kind of draw a little dash there and kind of connect the dots. It's a little harder to show on the smartboard, but we'll be showing you how to do that in class. So that is using a protractor to measure and draw angles.